Hey, so I bought this jet joiner off of Facebook Marketplace about 6 months ago, and I haven't used it since I purchased it, and that's because the infeed table here stopped working as soon as I got it home. And what happened is I think everything was all gunked up in here, or the thing's just old, or it was broken when I bought it, thanks to the chick that sold me the broken joiner. But also it's my fault because I didn't check to make sure everything worked really well and was in good order before I purchased it. But what happened is there's a ball crank that's attached to this wheel here underneath the infeed table, and it looks like this when it's in good working order. And I think the version that I have in here that's broken, this tooth here snapped off. So I haven't seen any videos on YouTube that go through the process of trying to replace this part and get this thing functioning. And so I'm gonna try and work my way through it and figure this out and hopefully get this thing up and running and useful.
There are 3 bolts that hold the joiner to the base stand. You can see 2 of them right there, and then there is a 3rd bolt that is hidden in the dust port of the joiner. And so you got to take that face off of the dust port. Here you can see the 3rd bolt hidden just inside the dust port. So to dismount the joiner from the base, I have to do something with these long, thready looking bolt things. I think I just spin them and they come out of the threads that are attached to the base. But to best do that, I think I'm gonna need to get the motor out of the way. And so I'm gonna dismount that from the base, which it's hooked in through the dustpan here by these bolts. But it's also wired into the switch out on the front of the joiner. And so I'm gonna disconnect that and make sure I make a little note about which wires go together here for the switch to work, so I don't have to troubleshoot that later. And then secondary benefit is the belt that drives the blades or the knives with the motor here. That's attached up to the joiner itself, and so I gotta figure out how to get this off. But if I dismount the motor, I can just unhook it, and that'll solve that problem. Shortly after I disconnected the switch wires from the motor, I realized that I didn't have to do that, and an easier method would be to just disconnect the switch from the stand, which is what I did here, and I reconnected the wires to the motor to avoid that mess. So next thing I'm going to do here is disconnect these bolts that are tied in through the side so we can drop the motor out and remove the belt from the motor, and also to get the motor out of the way so that I can get after these bolts over here more easily. With the motor removed, the belt was kind enough to just fall out the bottom. I appreciate that. It attaches right there to that wheel. So I've got these bolts here that attach the joiner to the base disconnected. There's just 3 of them. The 2 in the main hub of the base, and then the 1 in the dust port. And so I should be able to pick this guy up, move it over to my table, get it turned over, and start working on the ball crank replacement. So this right here is a defective ball crank. I want to get in here and pop this guy out but I don't think I can do that without taking off this apparatus here, whatever you would call this thing. And so it looks like it is attached exclusively with these two bolts here. There's probably more, but it looks like it's just these two. So I'm gonna pop these two out and see if I can take this away from the top two pieces. Yep, see, no, I was wrong about that. Those bolts are what hold the knives in place. So that goes on there like that, but that's okay. We can pull that out at some point when I figure out how that happens, because these knives need to be replaced anyway. So kind of a win. I'm gonna keep troubleshooting this thing and figure out how I get this piece off. I'll be back when I figure that out. So I'm trying to get the infeed here separated from this base, and I took a bunch of bolts out, and then these two over here specifically, and that didn't do anything except for release the housing for the knives. And then I looked at these three little bolts here, and I loosened those, and then used an Allen wrench to pull the thread part out, and that has released this infeed table, so it will slide away from the base. The only problem is it is hanging up on this giant 1-inch bolt that connects the ball crank to the infeed. And so to get this all off, I think I have to take this big bolt off first, but that would require a 1-inch socket, and who has one of those? So probably have to come at this tomorrow after a trip to the hardware store. Well, we're most of the way there. Something has got this stuck though, so I'm gonna turn this off and figure it out. So if you're following along to figure this out, you want to take this out first before you start trying to slide out the infeed table, because now I got it kind of wedged in there and stuck, and this is going to take quite a bit longer. So anyway, come back after I get that guy out. All right, I got this bolt out, and this infeed table should slide out pretty easily right now. So everything is taken apart here that needs taken apart, and this is the old ball crank. Am I in frame? Yeah, in frame. And you can see that it is missing pieces, specifically up here. And so without that, the infeed table can't slide up and down, and your jointer is useless. So first thing I need to do is to clean this up. It has got years and years of sawdust and junk, and before this ball crank broke, this table wasn't sliding worth a shit anyway, and that's because this is so terribly gunked up. So I'm gonna clean this, and then I'm gonna hit it with some glide wax, and that ought to do the trick. And then I can start putting everything back together and before you know it, I'll be jointing boards. I got the sliding surfaces all cleaned up. And so this table should go up and down a lot easier now. I'm gonna hit it with this glide coat here real quick, so that way it has that extra layer of slidey on here. And that's it. This stuff's pretty cool. You should put it on the surfaces of your tools. If you don't do that, it makes the wood slide a lot easier and keeps everything a lot safer. It's good for table saw surfaces. Any flat surface that things slide on, you want to make sure it has something to the tune of this product on it. It is time to put everything back in place. And so first thing I'm going to do is set the ball crank, new ball crank, in its place where it's supposed to go, which is about like that. I'm not going to secure it down right here because that bolt gets hung up when you're trying to push this back in. And so I'll put that on when I get the table back on to the base over here. All right, there's this little piece, which is what these bolts use to compress against the base here when you tighten those. And this slides in right here, this direction. So we gotta shimmy that back in. Anyway, you get the idea. Mess around with it, push on it, adjust things until this slides back in. And then we're gonna attach all the bolts and fixtures and things that we need to do over here. With the table back in place, you want to take this little leverage bolt for the ball crank and put it back in its home. Sure, the phone is picking up all that noise. That's the wind. I live in a windy neighborhood. It's gonna be hard to see, but when you install this ball crank, you want the teeth to fit around this bolt. And so I got it there, and then I can line it back up with its home there and stick its bolt in and cinch that down, and that'll be that. All right, everything is back together for the most part, and this thing is going up and down like a champion, which is nice. Sorry about the wind. So all that's left is to put this thing back on the base over here and hook the motor back in and put the belt on and plug her in and start joining wood. So between the last shot and this current moment, I made the decision that I needed to completely disassemble this thing for the most part and clean it up really good, get all the rust, junk, and old wood out of it. And then I also decided that Jet tools shouldn't be white, they should be black. With the name Jet being black makes way more sense to me for no apparent reason. So anyway, I'm gonna repaint. I say so anyway a lot in these videos. I'm gonna try to stop doing that. I'm going to repaint this black. And I wanna address that because the next shot after this shot, this will be a whole different color. The color black. And I don't want you to think I switched joiners or whatever. Gotta put the belt. Blech. Gotta put the belt back on. Slide it down in. Get it on the top wheel. Get it on the bottom one. And then just roll it on. Boom. This is a belt guard, and that slides right in place, right like that. You guys know how to put screws in. Put your own screws in. Next step, I'm going to reattach the joiner to the base, these bolts that we pulled out of the bottom of the thing. All right, all three of those bolts are in place. So this is attached. I'll tighten it down off camera, and then there's like nothing left to do. I'm gonna put the remaining parts on, and this guy is ready to go. It's the second to last part. Three days ago, this was a dirty, rusted out, useless piece of shit with a broken ball crank and an infeed table that wouldn't raise or lower. And it was sitting in my garage and it was doing nothing. And with a little bit of troubleshooting and a little bit of elbow grease, I was able to turn it into basically a brand new joiner. The only thing that's left to do is to replace the knives on this thing, because you saw me try and run that piece of wood through it, and they are super dull, not really cutting, just chipping away at the wood. So that's not good. But other than that, this is ready to go. That was fairly easy. So anyway, if you have a broken joiner sitting in your garage, and that's the thing that's broken with it, the ball crank, it's a pretty simple fix. Thanks for watching.